Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. The doll who used to sit on the top corner of my wardrobe never had a name. She was a china doll with long, curly brown locks and brown eyes framed by a pale bonnet. I was never allowed to play with her. She spent her short life perched as a decorative piece, high out of reach of indelicate hands. Yet one day, when I was playing with the more robust plastic Barbie dolls, I bumped into the wardrobe, and down she fell. Her face smashed into the corner of my dresser, and out cracked a third of her face. As my 6-year-old self gazed into the hollow depth of her dark, brainless skull, a horrible thought flooded my mind. Did the doll's fall hurt her? And if it did, would she be angry at me for my recklessness? The ominous nature of the blank-eyed china doll came naturally to me long before I saw any horror films regarding dolls which came to life and haunted their families. Breaking the doll felt like a sacrilegious act, even to a 6-year-old. Her gravitas was established by her perch, her delicate body, and her ornate attire. But the loftiness of the doll was established long before the realms of my bedroom existed. The doll is an ancient object, so ancient that anthropologists believe it may have been used as early as the Paleolithic era, between 2.5 million years ago to 10,000 BCE. As objects of this period were made of organic material, we have lost them to time, but the oldest doll we have is a 4,005-year-old doll made of soapstone from the Okunev culture. It was found in a common child's grave in southern Siberia in 2017, and it is the oldest object we know that was associated with a child as a plaything. There are other doll-like figures which may have possibly been used as toys, but we'll never truly know. Archaeologists largely prefer to consider dolls such as the ancient Egyptian paddle dolls and the Venus figurines from the Upper Paleolithic period as ritualistic and religious items. However, it's not inconceivable that a child from these periods would have played with these objects. The ancient Greeks had clay dolls with arms and legs that could move, though again some academics believe that they were too delicate to have been given to children and thus ascribe them apotropaic properties. However, I find it hard to conceive what benefits the ancient Greeks would have found in an articulated totem when they were abundant in fixed, non-articulated totems. I would rather believe that the jointed limbs were a feature developed for the enjoyment of a child's playtime rather than warding off evil. We can see on the grave of a young girl called Mellisto, who died around the mid-4th century BCE at approximately the age of 7, that her stele is engraved with an image of her playing with a small dog, and in her left hand she clutches a little doll. We also know for certain that children in ancient Rome played with dolls. Plutarch's 2-year-old daughter asked for milk to feed her dolls, quote, "For she would invite the nurse to offer the breast and feed it with not only other infants but even the inanimate objects and playthings she took pleasure in, as though serving them at her own table, dispensing in her kindness what bounty she had and sharing her greatest pleasures with whatever gave her delight." Little Timzina saw her dolls as living, breathing creatures, things with needs, wants and desires, beings for her to nurture and care for. For centuries, children have naturally adopted this perception, organically animating their dolls, believing they have feelings, souls and personalities just like them. Which is why I, too, felt sorry for the doll whose skull I smashed, whose invisible brain matter I splattered across my bedroom floor, and whose vengeance I genuinely feared. But before we get into the most frightening doll in history, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy for you to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place and all on your terms. If you're new to building websites, you can design a gorgeous, unique and professional looking website tailored to your brand thanks to Squarespace's blueprint. And with Squarespace's integrated optimized SEO tools, you can get your new website launched and discovered quickly. And you don't need to know anything about coding thanks to Squarespace's next generation website editor Fluid engine, which lets you just drag and drop your content where you want it on desktop or mobile. So if you're a freelance creative who wants to launch their own course, then Squarespace is the place for you. You can upload your videos and then add a paywall, set your own prices or charge a one-time fee or sell subscriptions, whatever works best for you. So if you want to expand your business or just build a beautiful site for your blogging leisure, then head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Lady of the Library to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Eugene Robert Otto, known to everyone as Gene, was born in the Key West in 1900 and lived at 534 Eastern Street. When he was young, Gene was given a wonderful gift, a 3-foot doll donning a little sailor suit and holding a small dog. How Gene got the doll is up to debate. Some say it was a servant in his home giving it for his birthday, whilst others say it was from a gift from a relative coming from Germany. Whoever gave the doll, it didn't really matter because Gene loved the doll, and Gene named him after himself, his middle name. He called the doll Robert. Robert and Gene went everywhere together. They played upstairs and downstairs, side by side all day, every day. His parents were shocked by how much the doll captured Gene's imagination. Whenever they walked by his bedroom, sometimes they could hear Gene talking to Robert, followed by a second voice talking back to him. It wasn't Gene's voice, but like many children when they play with their dolls, Gene had evidently given Robert his own voice, and the two engaged in conversation back and forth when alone. Well, that's what Gene's parents thought. One night, when Gene was 10 years old, his mother was woken by the sound of him screaming for help and furniture being tipped all over his bedroom. Rushing to his bedroom, she found the door locked, and she bashed herself against it until it broke through. Inside the room, she found Gene curled up on his bed, absolutely terrified. His room was in a shambles, and Robert the doll was sitting neatly at the foot of his bed. "Robert did it," was all Gene could say through shaking breath. Despite this, Robert was treated as a member of the family. He had his own seat at the dinner table. He would come to Gene to watch him as he bathed, and he would be tucked in bed alongside Gene every night. The more time he spent around the family, the more alive Robert seemed to become, and strange things began happening around the home. His parents and servants found their nice silverware thrown around the dining room and the kitchen. Servants also reported that they were frequently locked in rooms whilst they were cleaning, and they also found some of Gene's toys mutilated. Whenever asked what happened, Gene always gave the same answer: Robert did it. Robert was very much alive in Gene's imagination. His parents heard Robert talking a lot whenever they passed Gene's room. Sometimes, when Gene left the doll in their care, they believed they saw the expression on the doll's face change. When Gene was at school, they believed they could hear Robert giggling, and Robert seemed to haunt the corner of their eye. Gene's parents swore they sometimes saw the doll running up the stairs, giggling, and other times they saw him standing at the window, overlooking the street as they walked up to their house. Even their neighbours reported seeing Robert in the attic window, rocking in a chair and yelling threats at them. But Robert was Gene's friend for life, and that wasn't changing, even when Gene grew up, moved out, and got married. While Gene studied art in New York and Paris, Robert remained at 534 Eaton Street. Robert the doll was given his own room, up in the turret, where he stayed with his little teddy bear to keep him company. After Gene's parents died, Gene and his wife Anne moved back into the family home with Robert. Just like in childhood, Robert was everywhere. He even came on vacations with them. He had a chair at the dinner table and died alongside husband and wife, and he had a chair in their bedroom alongside their bed where he sat at night and watched them as they slept. Every day, Jean would place Robert in a chair in the upstairs room, looking down onto the street, and needless to say, Anne was disturbed. Robert gave Anne a bad feeling, and she asked Jean to put Robert in the attic, and Jean agreed. But Robert didn't stay in the attic. Guests of the couple's home commented that they often heard giggling and someone pacing back and forth upstairs. But soon, the couple began receiving complaints from neighbouring parents. You see, the neighbourhood children claimed they saw Robert watching them from the window of the upstairs bedroom, not the attic, and he was often heard yelling insults at them as they walked by. Confused, Jean decided to investigate. You see, he nor Anne had removed Robert from the attic, yet when he went to the upstairs bedroom, to his horror, he found Robert sitting in his chair, looking out the window. Jean locked Robert back into the attic, but time and time again, he would come home to find the doll sitting in his chair, looking out the bedroom window. Jean died in 1974, and his wife sold the house shortly after, Robert included. He was in the attic when the new owner's 10-year-old daughter found him, and his mischief started all over again. She allegedly screamed every night that the doll was trying to hurt her, and she told her parents that Robert wandered around her room at night. Robert lived in the house for another 20 years in the attic, until he was donated to the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he still sits today, behind glass, and is yet still blamed for strange going on and tragedies with those who encounter him. To avoid any trouble, the museum encourages people to ask Robert's permission before taking his photograph, as many visitors who did not have reported experiencing camera glitches after leaving the museum. Robert has also been blamed for being the reason behind physical harm, car accidents, divorces, and job losses by those who encountered him. He receives anywhere between 1 and 3 letters a day of people apologising to him and begging him to reverse their bad luck, or letters asking him for his advice on how they can reverse other curses placed upon them. If visitors to the house or museum speak poorly of Jean, Robert's expression is said to change to one of anger, and many visitors have reported watching Robert put his hands against the glass case as they look into him. There are many haunted dolls in history, but there are other stories that if you would like me to cover in shorter amounts, please do say so. If there are other haunted or creepy stories you would like me to cover, please, I would love to hear them from you. I have a Google form in the description box down below where you can send all of your requests, whether ancient or modern. I'm happy to look into them. Thank you so much once again for watching today's video. Thank you to my Patreons, as always, for supporting me. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I shall see you soon for another video. And until next time, books save lives, so keep reading.